So, it's finally time. We're talking about one of our favorite games ever, Donkey Kong Country 2. But this time, we've got the newbie to share his first time experience.
Yeah, tell us about it, Swinny.
His virginal Donkey Kong Country 2 experience.
Yes.
So this is part of our Game of Some Other Year 1995 series.
We should introduce
that
that
as well.
That's right. So for the complete noobs out there, noobs to the show and the format, we have done a Game of the Year in the past of 2011, if I remember correctly.
Game of Some Other Year.
Game of Some Other Year, where we go through select some of the top games of that particular year, and then we play each of those games, and then we review each one individually, and at the end we pick what we feel is the best game that came out that year.
Retrospectively,
retrospectively, of course, yeah. So there's nuances in there because we're not having the same experience as we did initially when we played it. So this time we're doing 1995, which is when Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest came out, even though I mostly played as Dixie Kong, but whatever, that's fine. It wasn't really Diddy Kong's Quest, it should have been Dixie Kong's Quest.
Yeah, I like how you keep saying it wrong.
Kong?
You keep on saying it wrong every time.
But it wouldn't be Dixie Kong because it's his girlfriend, and that would kind of be interbreeding between gorillas, and I don't think they do that.
Interbreeding.
Mike, that's why you got to play Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie's Double Trouble. So.
Do they reveal her true identity?
And try to read the title. Read the title of the game. Go read
Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest.
No,
Diddy's Kong Quest.
Read it from the start.
Why is the apostrophe there?
Read it from the
Because it's
start.
a pun.
No, don't tell him. Don't tell him.
Donkey Kong Country 2.
I didn't know you were trying to hide that fact.
Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest. Why? What's so funny? I'm not as familiar with the game. It's not fair.
It's not the game. Also, I love the way you say country.
Diddy, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest.
Conquest, yeah, Conquest.
Yes, Kong Quest.
I get the pun, but that's
Because
not the
he-
actual name, is it?
Yes, it is.
It is.
Oh my
That's
God,
the
it
name of the
is.
game. Yeah.
Because he's on a quest to get Donkey Kong, and it's a pun of conquest.
That's right, he is.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I get the title now. Wow. Wow.
So,
I should not be the one reviewing this game.
This is awesome so far. I have to say though, just because we haven't really brought it up, but Game of Some Other Year, we'll in a month's time have to determine what is the next year that we're picking.
Oh, yeah, damn.
Now, I'm just flagging this right now. I'm not trying to, muddy the waters here, people. But, we've kind of done the 2010s. We've done the 90s. I think it's either going to be the 80s or the 2000s.
No, but 80s, man.
that's just
No,
my call.
We don't have to stick to that, but we'll see what.
No.
Well, but it's working out nicely, Swinny. It's
It'll
working
have
out
to be
nicely.
the 2000s, probably.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway.
back to the topic at hand,
Yes.
which is Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest. So, this is the first time I played this game. Now, I'm not a total noob to the Donkey Kong.
See, it's on the title. You can see it on the
Country.
YouTube clip.
It is.
You can say DKC as well.
DKC 2. No one says
No,
that.
I'm going to keep saying it incorrectly.
Diddy's Conquest.
Diddy's Conquest. So I'm not a total noob to these games because of you guys, I've played a bunch of the other games, but I do need to obviously be transparent and let people know that I wasn't unfortunately privileged enough to have a Super Nintendo when I grew up. I missed out in that era. And I do legitimately, I mean, I can't regret it just because my parents didn't buy me one because they couldn't afford one. But I do, wish that I had actually played some of these games back then because I think the experience, it would have been completely different. So as an adult that has played all these other games since this came out, my lens is completely different to the lens that you guys have. My brain, has to keep reminding myself that this is a game that came out in 1995, and that before this, there weren't that many games that achieved a ton of the stuff that maybe this game achieved. Subsequently, tons of platforming games, tons of really cool games that came out, but it's really hard for me to put this through the lens of experience, if that makes sense. So I played probably, again, in the interest of transparency, because I try to be open and honest with these things, I probably played about 70% of the game, between 70 and 75. And I only know that based on the fact that I actually watched the video of the rest of it, just to see what I missed out in terms of the rest of the levels. So look, I played a good chunk of it, like most of it in that sense, in terms of the ratio. And there were parts that I enjoyed. There were parts that I think I totally appreciate more so from the perspective of how good it was back then in 1995.
Can
how
I just
awesome it would
say,
have been.
you are being so cautious. You're like tiptoeing right now.
I'm not trying to tiptoe because I'm really torn about this game because on one hand I see how good it is and I see the elements that I too enjoyed, but on the other hand, I have to admit I wasn't the biggest fan. And I'm not trying to, I don't want to offend anyone because I know a lot of people think this is one of the greatest games ever, and I actually
There are people that don't like these games, so
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
like
so-
think you're like being contrarian about
No,
this.
I'm not trying to. I don't think I'm being contrarian. I think I think after a while, I liked it at the start, but after a while, it almost became a chore playing the game, if that makes sense. That I just wasn't really into it. I wasn't really into how unforgiving it is. It's the bloody
sorry.
Dark Souls of 1995.
Whoever's
in
playing this
difficulty.
on our YouTube clip is just abusing the bloody save state system like an arsehole. Just need
That
to
totally wasn't me.
shout that out.
I did look. I tried not to use the safe state because you guys told me not to use it.
Oh,
I think it
look,
was you, Swinny, that said don't do it.
No, I said that. Look, I don't think you'll probably appreciate like the way that you learn the levels if you.
Yeah.
If you save state the whole thing. Now it's one thing to save state here and there, but it was my recommendation. I wasn't trying to.
No, I thought it was a good
or anything.
recommendation. I did end up using it in a whole bunch of different parts. So, for example, that boss, the flying wasp boss. I
Come
ended
on.
up
This person
using
is. We need to start recording
safe
our
state
own
in that
footage.
one.
This is terrible. I like how we're stealing this person's footage and then just calling them out.
But yeah. So look, overall, it wasn't the fondest experience. I didn't think I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. By the way, it could also be that I'm just not huge on side-scrolling platformers. I grew up with some of that generation, but more Commander Keen, Dangerous Dave, more those kind of games, which aren't that much easier in their own right. But overall, look, my thoughts are it's a very solid game. Oh, and one thing that I remembered is the music. I freaking love the music. To the extent that I actually went and just put it on YouTube while I was doing other shit. There's a few tracks that are just absolutely amazing.
What are some of your favorite tracks?
I don't know the names of them, but there's one. The one that's by far my favorite was the one in the area where you tend to fly with the parrot and you've got the vines with the spikes.
Sticker Brush Symphony.
That's the one. It is a freaking amazing track. It is such a cool track. And what I found really weird is how instantly I loved that track. Even though I didn't play the game, or I'm almost starting to wonder though if I actually did play this when I was younger, just not enough, or I saw people play it, and because that music felt nostalgic, which is really weird if I've never played the game properly, right? So either I had seen it or the music is so bloody brilliant that it can give you a sense of nostalgia without actually even playing the game originally.
I've seen a lot of, not so much these days, but like a lot of YouTube videos and channels, they would like put that as background music. So it's very possible that you've
Maybe
heard
that.
some of the stuff from this soundtrack simply because people loved to just chuck it in the background of when they're talking over stuff. So.
One thing I would say though as well is that the Sony audio chip on the SNES is very distinct, and it's sort of almost like the whole thing is a bit nostalgic it's like when people make new music for like Game Boy or NES or the SNES. It's very like iconic or automatically. It's a good song as well, by the way.
It is. One last thoughts before I pass it on to you guys that have obviously played the game back in the day as well, is whether I like it or not, I appreciate the design behind it. I appreciate the level design in a lot of instances. I appreciate the way you have to do certain things and memorize certain patterns.
Sorry, the person save scummed the target at the end of the level. Like, that is a new level low. Sorry to interrupt. I just couldn't believe what I saw in the YouTube clip.
But see, this is the challenge to us, Swinny,
Oh,
for
no.
us to record more of our own gameplay.
I know. I could not believe they just did that.
I know. I
That
saw
is
it coming.
Scum of the earth.
saw it
Scum
Not
of the
even
earth.
I would do that.
Save scum of the earth.
Well, I mean, just in terms of like what we think about the game, I had to check what it was. But if you go, it's amazing. It's so long ago now. But if you go to episode 14, Swinny and I cover this game like completely, like do a whole review of it or retro review of it. So that's sort of like part of our thoughts. But like, I love this game. I'm really glad that, you know, because we did the whole Donkey Kong Country series, Swinny, that I finally got to, you know, play and beat DKC 3 because I didn't do that back in the day. And I do miss the overworld structure of DKC 3. Like, that is such a cool addition to that game. And it would be sick if they had that in DKC 2. And, you know, it is something significant. Like, I could imagine if that was your favorite game, that whole element, how it all sat together with the rest of the game, could be a big thing. And it's sort of like a bit of a dividing factor between this game and DKC 3. But this game is just super nostalgic for me. I love it so much. I think it holds up. It's interesting that you didn't enjoy that as much, Mike. I don't think you're the biggest platforming person, though.
I'm not, and I think nostalgia. I mean, it's like I said, it's a well-designed game. I even love the humor in it, especially for the grandpa. There's very fourth wall breaking stuff that he talks about, and I actually listened to this stuff because I found it hilarious. But I think there is an element of you had to be there at the right time in your life to play this kind of a game that I think as an adult with everything else that's around, it's really hard to appreciate it the same way. And I feel like I couldn't do the game justice, if that makes sense. And I'm always disappointed at myself that I couldn't do the game justice because you can clearly tell it's a brilliant game.
How about you, Swinny?
Yeah, look, we spent an hour talking about this, so I really recommend it. Maybe we'll add it into the description of this clip on YouTube. But look, this game was just such a huge improvement over Donkey Kong Country 1. You know, it had tighter controls. Donkey Kong Country 1 looked good. This game looked amazing. Like, it just stepped it up so much. Like, to just think, like, no SNES games looked like this. It was insane, like, what they did with the hardware. And you mentioned the music, Mike, like, not just the songs, which are amazing, probably one of the best soundtracks of all time, easily on my top 5, I'd say. Just the production, the little things like the crickets chirping in the swamp, and like when you're in the pirate ship in the water inside the pirate ship, the music that sounds like it's, you know, like outside the ship against, like, just the production of that is just great. I mentioned this a little bit when we did our you know, deep dive, but this is one of the first games that I can remember that really made it felt worthwhile to actually hunt down and 100%, like the concept of 100%ing a game, because the reward was worth it. Unlike something like Mario World, where sure, there's 96 exits, but you don't really get anything for it. Whereas this game, you got extra content, you got secret bosses and endings and stuff.
I saw all that stuff. It was really cool.
And so it's really awesome. There's, like, I don't think this is a perfect game. Like, the middle part of the game's probably a little meh for me. Some of the levels, like the fire, forest, swamp areas. That's where some of, you know, like, to me, this game's all about, it's like the start and the end, but the end is brutal. Like, difficulty-wise, this game, those last run of, like, 4 or 5 levels are so tough. And so from a difficulty standpoint, I think, you know, they needed to smooth that curve a little bit, but overall, Donkey Kong Country 2 is one of the best games, especially one of the best 2D platformers I've ever played. Definitely a strong contender for Game of Summer of the Year 1995.
Yeah, I think extremely strong contender. Obviously, Mike's going to be a no vote for that, but I think a very strong contender.
Depends. Maybe the other games are worse.
But the last thing I wanted to say on it, and I don't know if I've heard someone have this take, but I do look at Donkey Kong Country, the 3 games that came out on SNES, and there's a bit of a parallel to me with the original Star Wars trilogy. So Donkey Kong Country 1 comes out, like amazing graphics, things you haven't seen before for what it was in the time it was, and very much like A New Hope. Like, holy shit, what is this thing? But when you pull it all apart, it's kind of a bit simplistic. You know, there's some like edges to it that need to be smoothed out.
Some bad hitboxes.
Yeah. And then, you know, you go to like Donkey Kong Country 3, which I kind of think there's a parallel with Return of the Jedi, where it's like much more colorful, much more kind of kiddie, like very like bigger budget, more stuff in it. I'm gonna get rid of this B-roll because the save's coming. It's even pissing me off now. You know, there's some stuff in it that I don't like. That it's almost like a bit like cringy. That's very similar to Return of the Jedi. It's almost like too kiddie, too colorful. But this to me is like Empire, where it's like it's kind of dark for a kids game. Like the theme, the art, the style of this game, Diddy's Conquest. It's like very dark and gritty. The music's awesome, and it very much like Empire to me, which is my favorite Star Wars movie of all time. Very gritty, very kind of like all the way through it. But yeah, like I love this game so much. For me personally, it could easily be the #1 game of 1995. Now that I've played Earthbound and Chrono Trigger, but yeah, we'll have to see with the determination in about a month's time. I think it is now, Swinny.
Yeah, and the next game we'll be covering is Yoshi's Island,
Ooh.
almost the direct competitor in terms of debate to Donkey Kong Country. I'm really looking forward to playing through that again this week. So.
Have we ever covered that on the show?
No.
Wow, interesting. Because Yoshi's Island, you know, just for people for next week, yeah, that's like one of Swinny and my favorite games of all time. Like, that game is amazing. Yeah, we'll cover it then. Like, there's a whole bunch of cool stuff there. All right, well, our final segment, and we're all very excited about this. We thought a very special episode 69, and Mike is a big fan of the theme of this week.
I am. It only happens once, baby.
I'll
so we gotta do
well, this is our only 69 of our life.
Yeah.
So let's jump
Only ever
into
had
it.
169.